Dani kodoyam pipeyamukum hantu imbukum muse.
We're about to see Something Inside is Broken, which is an original Native American hip-hop rock opera. It's about the resilience of the Nishinan people. Years ago, hundreds of years ago, they hunted down Indians. They tried to exterminate them. California was the only state to have an extermination policy for the first 2 years that we were a state. First, it starts with the creation of man, and then it jumps to the 1906 appropriation hearings held by the state Congress of California. There were 18 treaties where reservations were supposed to be built in California for all the tribes. But the state Senate hid those treaties away because the land that they were going to build the reservations on was too valuable. There's never been a Native American hip-hop rock opera ever. It's a love story between two Nishinan, a man and a woman, and she gets kidnapped by Sutter's slave hunters. The young man goes and volunteers to work for Sutter at his fort, and when Sutter's away with his army, he incites a riot. He rescues the girl. They get away. When Sutter comes back, Sutter's furious because the woman that he rescued was one of Sutter's love interests also. So he sent his army off to go track down these two native people, and they find them. They bring them back to the fort. He actually put a spike through her nose and chained her to a post every night, and he cut off her boyfriend's head and spiked it on the front gate. And none of this is taught in the school history books. Supposedly the gateway to the west, Sutter's Fort, where Americans came in and claimed California, that was also the place where Native Americans died. Sutter had 800 Native American slaves.
Can't see each other for who we truly are.
A little preview, a song from the play Something Inside is Broken. Actors and set builders have been getting ready at Sierra College in Rockland. Playwright Jack Kohler tells us about one of the characters, John Sutter.
And Sutter usually had about 10 women he kept in a separate room. And these women range from 10 years old up to 20s and 30s.
These the leaders that you follow.
The play centers around the story of a girl Sutter allegedly kept chained with a metal spike through her nose.
So she was used to service the food, do the dishes, the clothes, and then she was also used, in other ways.
For sex.
Yes. She was used for sex.
Kohler's descriptions are based on history books that include an account from one of Sutter's foremen, a starkly different image than the popular accounts of Sutter as the businessman who built a fort. Sutter's fort in downtown Sacramento is always bustling with tourists. Visitors tell us they've heard little about him as a taker of slaves. But a display does briefly share some of the slave history, accounts of the past. For Kohler, it's more.
So it's very hard to tell the story, and we get very emotional on stage. So we're portraying what happened to our ancestors, and we're trying to portray how they survived, and it's hard, but it is a way for us to heal.
In Rockland, Sharkna Shams, KCRA 3 News.
You're listening to Insight on Capital Public Radio. I'm Beth Ruyak. California Gold Rush stories from the Native American point of view. That's the essence of a hip-hop rock opera. It's titled Something Inside is Broken. And in the studio with me are the co-creators, Jack Kohler, a member of the Hoopa Valley tribe of Native Americans. He has been a writer, composer, director, and an actor in this project. And his co-writer and co-creator, Alan Wallace, is with us too. He speaks the language that is heard in this project. What story, what message did you want to tell with this opera?
The story was how California was inundated by miners and during the gold rush. I think that's what we've started out on, was this whole influx of 300,000 men, mostly men, moving to California in search for gold. And they didn't bring a lot of women. So one of our big things was, this whole story is about her story, because it's about a woman who survives. The resilience of the Nishan people was only because of the women that survived what happened to them. Most of the men got killed or hid or had to hide to survive. We're relatives of the survivors that happened during the gold rush and what happened during Sutter's reign on the Sacramento Valley. At that time, he had control of the whole Sacramento Valley, and then he was the voice of the valley. His quote is, "I am the law." So up until the gold rush, he was the law, and he had 700 slaves that worked his fields. None of that is taught to us in the history books at schools. None of that is ever mentioned about what Sutter did to the native people. He would make agreements with different sub-chiefs, and if they gave him men to work his fields, he would protect them. He was like a gang leader. If you give me something, I'll protect you, and you'll be okay. But then when the Americans started coming in, James Fremont and Kit Carson and his armies, and California had this manifest destiny.
These are big words, terrorist and gang leader, and some people might think they're fighting words. Alan, to have the story be told in a public forum the way people who may never have even known this side of it can learn and experience it, how will that settle with people you know?
Everybody's going to deal with it differently. It is a play, it's a musical, so I think it's a fairly tasteful way of telling the story, because it's hard to tell. We've never, but my sister and I, April, we never really were able to tell the story to people when we talked about the gold rush and all this stuff. So, because it's not an easy way to say it, but the way we're doing it with this is actually kind of fun.
I should add there, the reason you're saying fun is because there's a variety of music,
Yes.
there's comedy, there are very serious themes, but it's all approached in such a way so that you can take it in, be entertained, and educated.
We're addressing death with music. If we did it as a play, people wouldn't come to it because they just get really depressed. Mm-hmm. So we're throwing in music, we're throwing in variety, we're throwing in comedy. And so we're sort of honoring our ancestors by putting it in a musical format.
Part of my goal was to pay tribute to our elders, or those people from that time period, by helping preserve the culture and the traditions, and what no better way to do it with the language. And we can't mess up, because if we have the language in there, we're doing good work.
Jack, thank you. Alan, thank you too. There's more at capradio.org/insight. Thanks for joining us. Here's more from Something Inside Is Broken.
Awan peye pinoski samdi pinwono homawe Dani kodo yang pipe yamuku hantu imuku muse